you have the 84% who are always or most of the time looking at reviews, but are they looking at a representative sample of a hotel's guests? Hell no. They're looking at a tiny fraction.
Morning, Jeff.
Hang on. Good morning. You're starting without me. Good morning, Rich. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Feedback Matters, the YouTube channel and podcast of GuestInsight. Today, Rich and I will be discussing the results of a survey that we meaning GuestInsight, conducted back in December of 2025. And it was a survey of U.S. consumers of hotels, people who had stayed in a hotel at least one time in the last 12 months. And hotels was clearly defined as traditional lodging properties as opposed to short-term rentals like Airbnb or Verbos or similar. So we know that we were looking at or getting responses from hotel guests. And the reason we did this was we've been in this business for 20 plus years. And this business being, if you're on this channel or on this episode, you know that we are a guest survey platform. So we've been collecting the opinions of hotel, lodging, and restaurant guests for that period of time. And certainly the world has changed, and we wanted to see how much they've changed over the last few years in terms of how people view the communications that hotels send to guests after they leave or after they check out, I should say, as well as the surveys that usually are accompanying those communications. So survey requests or invitations that hotels send to guests after they check out. And we also, separately, in the back half of the survey, we wanted to see what the attitudes were and usage of online reviews are currently as compared to what we know about the past. And going back to 2005-ish, when this all started, certainly online reviews were new and were not used as much as they are certainly used now. So we wanted to explore some of the things that have changed. We've done it. There have been some interim surveys in the 20 plus years, but we haven't done one in a couple of years. So we wanted to get some up-to-date information. So today we are going to be talking about some of the things that we found interesting, surprising, not surprising, and so forth. So let's start with the actual communication, the message that a hotel sends after the guest checks out and is on their way home or home. So what struck you, Rich, about that?
The first thing that struck me was statistics about the guests' feeling of how important it is for the hotel to send them a survey versus if they actually go through and complete the survey. There's a big disconnect with those two numbers. And what they are is 72% of the guests said it's very important for the hotel to send them a survey, but only 24% said that they actually complete the survey.
Okay.
Now, it's also interesting, a little side
Wait,
fact.
can I just interrupt you for 1 second on that? So the question actually was worded about the 72% was how important, little housekeeping thing that we always do. So this is an audio podcast as well as a video episode that appears on YouTube or you can watch on YouTube. We will show things on the screen, but we'll also read them so that someone who's just listening can get some value out of it. Otherwise, you might be lost. Anyway, so I'll start reading. So that question that you're referring to as far as the 72% goes is, how important do you think it is for a hotel to follow up with you after a stay to ask for your feedback on how your experience was? So it's more about the ask, not necessarily, I mean, it implies it's the survey. They're sending them a survey, but we were specific on saying that how important is it that they ask for your feedback on how your experience was? Okay, so go on. What did you,
Well,
it was 72%.
It was 72% felt it was important that they get asked.
Okay.
24% was the figure that said that they respond. I don't recall, is it often respond, always respond?
Yeah, we did have choices there. So the question that we're talking about now is, how often do you complete a hotel's follow-up survey? The choices were always, most of the time, sometimes, rarely, or never. So always was only 6%.
Right. And
And
then
then
often,
most of the time
or most of the time.
was 19%.
All right. So that's where we get our 24% of frequent responders, put it that way.
Correct. Yes.
And I just felt that was interesting because it's quite a gap. You would assume that if you think it's important for the hotel to ask, that you would go ahead and answer.
I agree.
Fun.
So I also think that, well, the 24% who are frequent, we're kind of redefining the categories there, frequent responders. And just on the other side of the spectrum, as far as completing surveys, 15% say never, they never respond. And another 20-ish% say rarely. So there's that also. But considering that 24% are frequently responding, we actually think that that 24% is relatively high compared to the averages that
Right.
hotels experience in terms of response rates on their
That's a
surveys,
good
right?
response rate. It's
It is
it's
a very good.
good
I mean, we've
response
seen
rate.
higher over the course of
Yeah,
our
but
practice.
I'm satisfied with that response rate.
Oh yeah, I think most hotels would be,
Yeah.
right?
So just the gap in those two numbers I found surprising. That's all.
Okay. Okay. And we didn't leave it there. I would agree with that. I mean, I think the surprise for me, while the response rate of 24% of often-ish, if we're going to define it that way,
Mhm.
is high, it was not like a very surprising number. Whereas the 72%,
Yeah, that's the point. The
I think
difference
that
between
that
the
one is surprising, that
yeah,
how important people think it
right,
is.
right,
So, and we didn't just leave it there. We did follow up and ask why people don't complete a survey. And so let's read that question. We kind of combined it. Again, we trade-offs in survey design. You don't want to overwhelm somebody with a task that becomes too
right.
difficult and too tedious. So we kind of combined this one because we had a lot of content to go into. So here was the follow-up question. Thinking about why you do or do not complete hotel guest surveys, which of these statements is true for you? So it was a choose all that apply. So,
Right.
we have to look at these percentages in the context that it's a choose all that applies. So keep that in mind. So here are the choices. I do the survey if I had a great experience. I do the survey if I did not have a good experience. And we specifically use those because we know that traditionally
Yeah, that's a five.
that's ones and fives, as you like to say. So very happy guests, which are fives, and very unhappy guests, which are ones. So those are the people who have always been more
They
vocal
they
and
want their
more
voice to be heard.
exactly. So I do this survey if I had a great experience is around 57%. I do the survey if I did not have a good experience is about 55%. So that kind of that made sense, right?
Mhm.
Next one was I do the survey because I appreciate the way the hotel has asked me. So we,
The way the
again,
hotel has asked me.
correct.
That's
So
okay.
in terms of the messaging, in terms of that invitation,
Right.
we know that how things are communicated is important, and we wanted to see if, in fact, it validated something that we've believed for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 20% said they do it because that. So 20% check that box, which
Right.
is, I think that makes sense, right?
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then getting back to the polarity of the ones and fives, we put in, I do not do the survey if the hotel stay was just okay. So on that 1 to 5 scale, it's the twos, threes, and fours. And that was also around 20%. That makes sense as well, right?
Yep.
I do not do the survey if it seems too long, 52%. And I do not do the survey if I don't have time. So let's go to that last one first, at 52%. I do not do the survey if I don't have time. So that's, these are both really friction points. But if I don't have time, what do you think? What's your opinion of people saying, I don't have time, so I don't do it?
I think it's just a fact that we have to deal with all the time. I said to you earlier in a different discussion, I think it's a little bit of a catch-all reason, almost an excuse kind of, not to do it. If it's important, 72% say it's important that they get it. And others say, well, it's important I got it, but I don't have time to do it.
No, they said it's important. They didn't say it's important they got it. They say it's important for the hotel
Well,
to follow up.
it's assuming that if the hotel follows up, they get it. I mean, they receive it. The
Yes.
hotel
Yeah.
follows up. You have to
Yeah.
assume they received it.
Uh,
Um,
yes. Okay.
I don't know. I just, that's a high number. What do you think?
If I
50%?
think I think that this could be followed up in another. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to get to here that could be followed up in another survey that could clarify some of these things. I think we're ending with some questions rather than all answers, right? I think that it's raised some more questions. So if somebody says they don't have the time, they're saying that there are other things that they're busy and they have to prioritize things in their
Correct.
lives.
Correct.
And so they're not going to do it if something becomes more important. That said, we know that 57% do it if they had a great experience, and 55%, I think it was, do the survey if they did not have a good
Or
experience. So,
correct.
so if their experience falls into those two categories, it goes up their priority list, and maybe they do have time. It becomes more important to them. So,
Right. Right.
it is a little tricky as to what I don't have time means, but
Right.
everyone's making trade-offs on how they use their
Right.
free time and so forth. Then getting back to, I do not do the survey if it seems too long, about 52%. You mentioned that they will only know that if they start the survey, or somehow they decide that from the way the message read
Yeah.
that it's going to be long. But I think that for most people, they start it and they say it's too long. I'm not doing it. I'm not finishing it. So we're talking about abandonment rates.
Abandons. Yeah.
Right. And so for anybody who is running a survey and they see high abandonment rates, obviously one of the reasons for abandonment is length of survey. We all have to make choices when we design surveys, and length is certainly one of them. You have to prioritize, you have to be clear, and you have to be respectful of the respondent's time.
Right.
Okay, so that was the survey side of it. So, in today's world, businesses, lodging and food and beverage businesses, hospitality, obviously, get two different kinds of feedback: private feedback, which come from surveys, and public feedback, which are the online reviews, which in the 20 plus years that we've been doing this, we saw online reviews become a thing like, oh, that's interesting, to now something that is so important in everything that we all buy, not only in hospitality. So we got through the survey portion of our survey, and then we got into the online reviews section, and we said, how often do you look at online reviews like TripAdvisor and Google reviews when researching hotels to consider booking? And we know that this is a high number. It's been a high number for the last probably 10 years.
And I was going to say 10. Yeah.
But this is how high it is. 50% said they always look at online reviews before they consider booking. Another 34% said most of the time. So you have 84% who are saying most of the time or always. And then sometimes is another 10. So you have 94% are sometimes, most of the time, or always. You only have about 1% who never look at reviews before booking, and about 4% who rarely. So no surprises there, right?
No. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
And then we followed up. The next question was, how often do you post online reviews to sites that you look at when researching hotels after a stay?
Right.
We knew these numbers would not be anywhere near participation in terms of posting versus consuming reviews, but it's a little shocking what the responses were. And it's shocking because it's almost like this is one of the most important pieces of marketing information that's out there for a hotel. And it's shocking how few people are contributing to it that are using it.
Right.
And it's a problem. It's always been a problem. but it continues to be a problem, and it's a problem that somehow needs to be addressed. So let's just look at the numbers. 52% never post a review.
That number is
Never.
mind-boggling. It's never post a review.
Right.
What I get out of that is that half the people who look at reviews always or often are not contributing to those reviews. So
You can
84%.
oh well, yeah, I mean half of, yeah.
I'm just saying that you would think that if you're always or frequently looking at reviews for information about the property, that you would be more inclined to post reviews.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, because we knew that there was going to be a disparity between consuming reviews and contributing
Did you
reviews.
think it was going to be that much of a disparity?
I would say, I think my quick reaction is surprised, not surprised, kind of. I don't know.
Okay.
So 52, let me just finish the numbers. 52% ish never. 43% sometimes will contribute or post a review, and often or always is about 4%. So
Right.
terrible. Big problem. I mean, at the end of the day, people are looking, you have that 84% who are always or most of the time looking at reviews, but are they looking at a representative sample of a hotel's guests? Hell no.
No.
No,
No.
they're not. They're looking at a tiny fraction. And as we're going to see now, that tiny fraction sort of falls in line with what we've always experienced as to who is
Right.
not only responding to surveys, but who is posting the reviews. So we followed up those two review questions with when you post a hotel review to one of those sites, what motivates you to do so? And the ones and fives theory, as you like to call it, great experience at the hotel, 72% chose that. Bad experience at the hotel, also about 71%. So that falls in line. So again, we have that polarity there. We have the really happy people, we have
Right.
the really unhappy people, but much, much fewer, because it's a very small percentage of people who are checking out of hotels or posting reviews, but it's still, that polarity exists.
It seems that hotel guests don't recognize any value if their stay was good, so okay. They don't find a value in communicating that, whether in a survey or a review.
Well, that's a little harsh, maybe. I think, I don't know if it's they don't find value in it. I think
They don't think it's
they may
important,
not.
that's for sure. They're not
Well,
doing it.
I don't think they find value in talking about it. And it actually, that when you said that, it made me think of something else: expectations. So if expectations were just met, maybe that there's nothing remarkable, either
Right.
positive or negative. So that's just, that's what it is. But
And
how
that
were
could be
those?
considered okay.
Yeah, I mean, the
If my
problem is, like,
expectations are very high and you met them, good for you. You didn't
yeah,
blow
but
me away, but you met high expectations. That's good.
right. So it was an okay stay, and I don't have to contribute anything about it because it was just an okay stay.
And it was what I expected.
Okay, but the question is, how were your expectations set? I mean, this is it's kind of like a vicious cycle, because
It's a black
your
hole.
expectations were set based on something. Was it a recommendation or something somebody personally told you about it, or
A
for a
previous
lot of
stay.
people, well, yes, previous stay. Well, you could also say that if it was a previous stay, you're probably not looking at reviews. But I'm saying for people who it's a first time stay,
Oh,
how
good
are
point. Good point.
expectations set?
Good
It's
point.
either from a personal recommendation or it's from reviews. So if all the people whose expectations are met, or a large percentage of the people whose expectations were met are not contributing because they're saying it was just okay and it's not really good and it's not really bad. So it's not worth my time doing that. How these expectations are being set by those two polar, opposites, really good stays and really bad stays. And so that middle is always falling out. So
Right.
it's very tricky.
Yeah.
So, that polarity exists here. Let me just finish the choices we gave them. Polite request from the hotel, because we know that at the end of surveys, if any of you who are listening or watching have watched or listened to our So You Want My Feedback series, where we go through real feedback surveys from hotels and restaurants and other businesses, we've seen a trend in the last couple of years where at the end of those surveys, that private feedback, they will sometimes ask the guest to go over to one of the review sites and contribute a review there. So we wanted to see, how that shakes out as far as is that contributing to people posting reviews? And that was about 6%. And then you said something before about like you're surprised that people aren't interested in paying it forward. And we wanted to explore that. So that was one of the choices. Paying it forward, helping other travelers was a choice on that motivation of why you post a review.
What
And
was
a
that?
full 44% want to pay it forward.
Wow.
Yet they're not, right? And then we did have one other
Nice.
choice there where we were hoping it was going to be a small number, but it was discounts. We wanted to explore the idea: are people being offered discounts or some sort of incentive
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
post a review? And about 3%, which is not necessarily surprising, but maybe a little disappointing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the last thing we did, as far as trying to understand why are they not posting? Why are all these people not posting? We just learned that they want to pay it forward. 44% want to pay it forward. 70 something percent, will post if it's a good experience or a bad experience. But, the vast majority of these folks are not posting reviews. And so we wanted to explore the friction. So, as we already talked about, one of the choices we gave them was the hotel experience was just okay. So it's not worth it, right? 65% said that they don't because the hotel experience was just okay. And then the other thing is the other piece of friction, or that the friction here possibly is about time. And we offered them the choice, don't have the time. And it was 62%. And we did have an other category to see if people would type in anything else, but no one did. They probably didn't have the time. So those were the key things that we learned about surveys and reviews. Polarity exists. So just to sum it up, polarity has always existed. People are more inclined to rant about bad things and praise really good things, and
Yeah.
not necessarily talk about everything in the middle. And that's true in surveys, and that's true in reviews. The biggest problem I see for hotels is that, unfortunately, the picture of the guest experience is very incomplete. It's not representative of their overall guest
Right.
population, because so few people are posting reviews, yet so many people are looking at reviews to learn more about the hotel. So,
Right.
and there's the friction is about, the polarity comes into it, and it's time. It's the time to write the review, right? There's friction there. I don't have the time. It's an exercise. It's something else I got to do, and other things. Whereas I might want to pay it forward. 44% are interested in doing it. Ultimately, they don't, because other things get in the way.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to bring up is that we wanted to explore getting back to the request or the communication from the hotel to the guest, that follow-up email that asks them to take a survey. We want to understand the format of that. Was that important in any way to guests? And I should say that we did make sure that we had a variety of hotel stays represented like different levels or star rating in
Mhm.
terms of hotels. We had from budget all the way up to luxury and boutique. And so we had a good distribution there. And then we did that. So getting to that point about how that messaging is done, we asked how important is it that a hotel's post-stay follow-up, including surveys, feel consistent with the hotel's price slash premium positioning and the experience you had. And we gave them the choices of very important, somewhat important, and not important. So more than half felt that it was important. So 37% felt it was very important. About 17% said it was somewhat important, but about 45% did not think it's important. So
What do you
I
make
mean,
of it?
I think the big takeaways, I don't know what I expected there. I mean, we've always felt that every communication, every touch point that a hotel has with a guest, from that first reservation confirmation through the last touch point, which is the request for some feedback,
Right.
it's part of the overall guest experience.
Correct. Right.
And so more than 50% of the people surveyed said that it is important that it's consistent with the hotel's positioning. And we specifically talked about price and if it's a premium price point and the experience that they had, so that we framed it in that way. And more than half the people agree with that. So
Right.
more than half the people think that it is part of the guest experience,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
That's how I view it. You?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I wish more people would appreciate that. We do consider that very important. We put a lot of time and effort into constructing the piece of communication to be fitting with the property, that is coming from. So,
We do, but I would think, and we never did ask this question before. We knew it anecdotally, but we never did it in a survey like this before. I would think that this number, the importance has, or the percentage of people who find it important has come down, just because people are getting so many more communications these
right,
days
right,
that
right,
it's just part of it's
yeah,
part of their everyday lives, that it's
right,
just everybody's getting a follow-up survey for every transaction they make. Everything you buy,
yeah,
everywhere you go, you're getting a
yeah,
request for feedback. So it's part of the transaction now. So more than half of people still do think it's important, that it should be on brand and considered part of the experience that's consistent with the rest of the experience. But I would think that that number probably was higher some time ago when people were not so inundated
right,
with so
right.
many messages.
Um, that's
Would you agree?
absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Just I wonder if it's something to consider how their feelings of it's not important to be on brand affects their response rate. How if the being on brand actually brings up the response rate.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things here that possibly warrant further
Yeah,
investigation and more.
yeah. I mean,
They raise more questions. I mean, there was one other follow up there, also to get to that idea of that it's part of the overall experience. We asked which statement below comes closest to your view, and these were the three choices. Hotels that charge more or position themselves as premium should have more thoughtful, well-designed post-stay follow-up communication, including surveys. That was one. The second one was all hotels should handle post-stay follow-up communication about the same way, regardless of price or category. Two. And the third one was I really don't notice or care how post-stay follow-up communications is designed. So again, this is the responses here are kind of in line with what we just talked about as the importance of it being on brand, so to speak. So 27% felt that hotels that charge more position themselves as premium should have more thoughtful, well-designed post-stay follow-up communications. So I would say that if you run one of those hotels, you should take note of that,
up
right?
your game.
Then 27% said all hotels should handle post-stay follow-up communication about the same, regardless of price or category, about the same number. But in total, that's more than 50%.
Right. Right.
So, and then that last one was people 45-ish% don't really care.
Right.
Again, I think that that's a
Consistent with the
function.
other question.
It is very consistent. I think it's just a function of, the times again, and how much,
Right.
how feedback is so part of our everyday transaction life, right? Everything we buy, do, so forth.
Yeah. Just
But
that a hotel stay is more of a investment of obviously money, but time, commitment,
well,
then
it's more immersive. You're living there, right?
yeah. So then, getting a feedback from you buying something at a retail store. You made a commitment to travel usually.
Most often,
Go to
yes, I would agree.
yeah.
But again, I mean, the numbers of the people who find that the communication should be on brand, and if it's premium property, it should be
Looking for them,
it should look more premium.
right.
They're notable. They're significant. They're notable numbers, and
Right.
if people and hoteliers in those categories should take a look at that,
You take a
and
look at it. Right.
consider that
Right.
when they're deciding what platform to
Right.
send their surveys.
Right. Because for those folks, it's going to affect their response rate. And that's what our goal is, to get as many responses as possible.
Correct.
So, yeah. Interesting.
So that's it. Interesting stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so too. But, so we learned some things. We validated some things about what we've always thought.
Correct.
And we were a little surprised by some things, but a lot of stuff has stayed the same. The polarity still exists. People are most inclined, whether it's in a survey or in a review, to speak their mind about great experiences and poor experiences.
Yes.
And the middle always falls out.
Right.
And the great problem for hospitality organizations is that the information that is out there for people to learn about their property and decide whether their property is worthy of their time and money is mostly everybody is looking at online reviews, and the online reviews are just not representative of the overall guest population in at each property. And it seems that there's friction as to why people don't post reviews. It's just such a small percentage of hotel guests choose to post reviews.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. Rich, as always, thank you for joining me today to discuss this.
It's good stuff.
Okay. Thank you everyone for watching or listening today to another episode of Feedback Matters. We'll have another one up soon on something. We'll see what we're going to discuss. Something about loyalty, I think, right? I think we've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
So thanks again for watching or listening, taking the time out of your day to do this. You can find us on YouTube and anywhere where you get your audio podcasts. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, folks.